What if the next global space superpower isn't the US? While America stalled, China forged a path with Africa, investing billions and offering true partnerships. Trump's isolationist policies backfired, opening the door for Beijing. Is this the dawn of a new space race, with Africa at the forefront? Chapter 01: Introduction. The shifting sands of space power. The global space landscape is undergoing a dramatic transformation. Traditionally dominated by the United States and Russia, new players are rapidly emerging, reshaping the dynamics of space exploration and utilization. China is at the forefront of this shift, challenging established norms through substantial investment and a focus on international collaboration. Critically, Africa is no longer a passive observer but an active participant, leveraging strategic partnerships to develop its own space capabilities. This evolution stems from a confluence of factors, including evolving geopolitical strategies, technological advancements, and the recognition of space-based assets' critical role in economic development and national security. The shift is creating both opportunities and challenges, forcing established space powers to reevaluate their approaches and adapt to a more multipolar space environment. A key aspect of this shift is the increasing emphasis on commercial space activities, impacting governmental policies and international cooperation. As of early 2025, the space sector witnesses unprecedented levels of public and private investments, pushing the boundaries of innovation and accessibility. Chapter 2: Africa's overlooked potential in space. For decades, Africa's role in space exploration was largely limited to ground-based support for foreign missions. Its vast geographical expanse and strategic location near the equator, ideal for satellite tracking and launch facilities, were largely ignored. However, the continent possesses significant untapped potential. Its rising economies and growing populations require space-based services for communication, agriculture, environmental monitoring, and disaster management. Recognizing this, African nations are investing in their own space programs, aiming to leverage space technology for socio-economic development. This push is being facilitated by access to new technologies and a growing pool of skilled professionals. Furthermore, international partnerships are playing a vital role in accelerating Africa's space ambitions. The focus is shifting toward creating indigenous capabilities, enabling African nations to address their unique challenges and contribute to the global space community on an equal footing. As of 2025, multiple African nations are actively developing and launching their satellites for Earth observation and communication purposes. Chapter 3: China's strategic investment in African space programs. China's engagement with Africa's space sector represents a strategic investment with long-term implications. Unlike traditional aid programs, China's approach involves direct investment in infrastructure, technology transfer, and joint research initiatives. This includes building satellite assembly plants, ground stations, and training centers across the continent. By providing access to affordable technology and expertise, China is empowering African nations to develop their indigenous space capabilities. This investment is driven by a combination of factors, including securing access to strategic locations for space-based assets, promoting economic cooperation, and expanding its geopolitical influence. Beijing views space as a critical domain for future economic and military power, and its partnerships with African nations are an integral part of its broader global strategy. As of 2025, China has further deepened its presence in Africa's space sector by initiating joint lunar research programs with several African countries, marking a new phase in their space cooperation. Chapter 4: From Aid to Partnership, China's Cooperative Approach. A distinguishing feature of China's approach to space cooperation with Africa is its emphasis on partnership rather than traditional aid. Unlike Western models that often impose conditions and restrictions, China offers direct investment, technology transfer, and training without demanding political concessions. This cooperative approach fosters a sense of ownership and empowers African nations to develop their space capabilities independently. Beijing prioritizes building long-term relationships based on mutual benefit, fostering trust and collaboration. This model is particularly attractive to African nations seeking to escape the legacy of colonialism and assert their sovereignty in the space domain. By sharing its technology and expertise, China is helping African nations become active participants in the global space community, contributing to innovation and sustainable development. China's approach is based on the principles of mutual respect, equality, and shared benefits, solidifying its position as a preferred partner for African countries. Chapter 05: Egypt's Space City, a hub for African space innovation. Egypt's Space City, located near Cairo, embodies Africa's growing ambition in space exploration. This state-of-the-art facility is designed to be a regional hub for space research, satellite assembly, and training programs. It represents a significant investment by the Egyptian government in developing its indigenous space capabilities and fostering collaboration with other African nations. With support from China, Space City is equipped with advanced laboratories, testing facilities, and satellite monitoring systems. The facility plays a crucial role in Egypt's efforts to design, build, and launch its own satellites, reducing its reliance on foreign providers. It also serves as a center for training the next generation of African space scientists and engineers. Space City is a symbol of Africa's potential to become a significant player in the global space community, driving innovation and addressing regional challenges through space technology. As of 2025, Space City has expanded its facilities and capabilities, hosted more international conferences, and attracted talents from across Africa and beyond. Hold on a second. I have a question for you. Considering China's growing partnerships with African nations, is the US losing its dominance in space? Let me your thoughts in the below. Chapter 6: The Misr-Sat-2, a symbol of Egyptian independence in space. The Misr-Sat-2 represents a pivotal achievement for Egypt, signifying a move towards self-reliance in space technology. As Egypt's first domestically assembled satellite, built with assistance from China, it embodies the country's ambition to control its space program. The project involved Egyptian engineers directly in the assembly, testing, and integration phases, gaining invaluable expertise for future missions. This hands-on approach marks a departure from simply purchasing pre-made satellites, fostering a sustainable foundation for Egypt's space sector. The Misr-Sat-2 is more than just hardware. It's a testament to the successful transfer of knowledge and technology, empowering Egyptian scientists and engineers to lead future projects. The collaborative model ensures that Egypt can independently manage and advance its space capabilities. Chapter 7: Tangible Benefits: Earth Observation Satellites and African Development. Earth observation satellites are providing tangible benefits to African nations, impacting various sectors critical for development. Launched with support from China, these satellites contribute to improved agriculture. By monitoring crop health and optimizing irrigation, they aid in climate change monitoring, providing data for informed policy decisions. Furthermore, they assist in urban development, enabling better planning and infrastructure management. These advancements enhance national security through border monitoring and disaster response capabilities, which allows for effective economic planning and timely disaster response. By reducing reliance on Western data providers, African nations gain control over their information, ensuring they can compete effectively on the global stage. The satellites provide data for informed decision-making and sustainable development strategies, enhancing resilience and self-sufficiency. Chapter 8: US's Hands-Off Approach: Declining Foreign Aid under Trump. The US's hands-off approach, particularly the decline in foreign aid under the Trump administration, created a vacuum in Africa's space sector. As the US scaled back financial support, China readily filled the gap, offering substantial investments and partnerships. This shift reflects a broader trend of the US prioritizing domestic interest over international engagement. Specifically in Africa, the reduction in aid affected various space initiatives, limiting opportunities for African nations to develop their capabilities with U.S. assistance. This strategic retreat allowed China to strengthen its position as a reliable partner for African countries seeking to advance their space ambitions. The current administration faces the challenge of rebuilding trust and re-establishing a strong presence in Africa's evolving space landscape. In 2025, it still needs more improvements. Chapter 9. Artemis Accords vs. ILRS, Competing Visions for Lunar Exploration. The Artemis Accords, led by the U.S. and the International Lunar Research Station, also known as ILRS, spearheaded by China, represent competing visions for lunar exploration. The Artemis Accords aim to establish a Western-dominated framework for space activities, potentially benefiting U.S. interests more than those of African nations. In contrast, the ILRS offers a collaborative platform where African nations can actively participate in lunar missions and shape the future of space exploration. While the U.S. demands compliance with its framework, China builds infrastructure and funds education, aligning with African nations' goals. The ILRS resonates more strongly with African countries seeking a direct role in lunar exploration, rather than being relegated to the sidelines. This divergence highlights differing approaches to international space cooperation and their impact on African participation. Chapter 10. Private Sector Focus, SpaceX, and the U.S. Approach. The U.S. has increasingly relied on the private sector, particularly companies like SpaceX, for space expansion, rather than prioritizing state-driven partnerships with African governments. While SpaceX dominates the American space industry, its primary focus is on profitable ventures like Starlink and Mars colonization, with limited direct investment in developing Africa's space sector. This approach contrasts sharply with China, where the state actively invests in space programs across Africa, fostering long-term collaboration. Wait a second. Do you think the U.S.'s approach to space collaboration in Africa is a strategic mistake? Share your thoughts with us. The U.S. government's decision to allow private corporations to set the agenda has resulted in an agenda that does not prioritize Africa's role in space, potentially hindering the development of sustainable space capabilities on the continent. The emphasis on private sector initiatives requires more strategic direction to ensure that African nations can benefit from technological advancements and participate actively in space exploration. Chapter 11. Ground Stations, the Strategic Importance of African Locations. Ground stations in Africa are strategically vital for global space operations due to the continent's geographical location, situated near the equator. These stations offer optimal coverage for tracking satellites in orbit, particularly those used for Earth observation and telecommunications. Having ground stations on the continent provides more real-time data capture and improved control over satellite operations for space agencies. China has recognized this advantage, investing heavily in constructing ground stations across Africa, enhancing its tracking capabilities in the Southern Hemisphere. This infrastructure allows for more frequent communication with satellites, crucial for data download, command uploads, and monitoring satellite health. The U.S. has recognized this gap, but they need to improve a lot. Chapter 12. The U.S.'s colonial mindset in space cooperation. The U.S.'s colonial mindset in space cooperation is characterized by a tendency to dictate terms rather than fostering mutual respect and understanding. The U.S., for instance, expected African nations to align with the Artemis Accords without adequately addressing their specific needs and interests. This approach echoes historical patterns of Western powers imposing their agendas on African nations, hindering genuine partnership. China, conversely, avoids this approach by offering infrastructure, funding education, and empowering African nations to define their space agendas. This fundamental difference in approach has led many African nations to view China as a more reliable and equitable partner in space exploration. This requires the U.S. to improve for better reach. Chapter 13. Case Studies. Egypt, South Africa, Senegal choose China. Egypt, South Africa, and Senegal exemplify African nations that have chosen to collaborate with China in space exploration. Egypt's partnership with China has led to the development of Space City, a regional hub for space research and satellite assembly. South Africa is collaborating with China on lunar exploration, gaining valuable experience in deep space missions. Senegal is working with China to develop its satellite capabilities and improve Earth observation. These case studies highlight the tangible benefits of partnering with China, including technology transfer, infrastructure development, and access to expertise. These collaborations demonstrate China's commitment to supporting African nations' space ambitions and fostering long-term partnerships. Chapter 14: Future Implications: Africa's Role in the Global Space Race. The future implications of Africa's growing role in the global space race are significant. As African nations develop their space capabilities, they will play an increasingly important role in shaping the future of space exploration and utilization. This increased involvement will lead to advancements in various sectors, including agriculture, climate monitoring, and disaster management. The partnerships between African nations and China will foster innovation, economic growth, and technological advancement on the continent. Africa's active participation in space will empower the continent to address its unique challenges, contribute to global scientific knowledge, and assert its presence on the global stage. Wait just a second. If you were an African leader, which country would you choose to partner with for space development, and why? Comment below. From overlooked continent to key player, Africa's space journey is just beginning. Can the US adapt and join this new era of collaboration? Share your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and thank you for watching.